There's a new season of 90 Day Fiance, and you know what that means. It's time to judge some strangers that we know nothing about. Mary and Brandan are both insane and toxic, but I'm sorry, I don't believe for a second that Brandan went far enough for her to drop out of school. It's also sus. Mary is saying she unplugs her router but doesn't trust Brandan. WTF. She goes and hangs out with the guys and says she had a power outage. My god. Next time my boyfriend calls me clingy, I'm gonna show him Brandan and Mary. Yeah, Brandan and Mary definitely stole the show, didn't they? So they talk a lot, and by a lot, I mean 24/7, like all the time, and Brandan hangs out with other people, but Mary is still on the phone listening in. He's taking a shit, she's listening in. I mean, thank God we have things like FaceTime and other ways of communication in the modern era that makes long-distance relationships easier, but FaceTiming them 24/7 with your own portable recharging bank and even taking a shit and stuff while hanging out with them online sounds like the most Zoomer thing in the world, which is fine, but this really takes it to a whole new level.
She also has 8 tattoos total. 2 or 3 of them have my name on it. So yeah, that's a big deal.
At first, I thought Brandan was kind of a dorky kid, but kind of a quirky relationship, and if it works for both of them, then I guess it's fine. I was a little worried that Brandan might be the controlling type or hyper insecure and just needs to communicate 24/7, but then we learned that it was actually Mary's idea to talk all the time. And in fact, it actually seems like she has kind of a jealousy problem with not wanting him to talk to female cashiers or clerks or anything like that. Okay, so Brandan is the more normal one and Mary's the one with the jealousy problems? But then we hear from Mary that Brandan has a lot of jealousy problems too. While Mary doesn't let Brandan talk to any girls, she hangs out with guys, and while she insists to be on the phone with him 24/7 to make sure he's, not messing up or something, she admits to just unplugging her router and lying to Brandan about it and saying she has a power outage while she goes and hangs out with the guys, so he won't find out. Okay, so Brandan's not weird, it's Mary's weird. But wait, Brandan is also weird. So they're both weird, and they both lie to each other. Well, they don't both lie. They're both jealous. What's going on? Honestly, this was just the first episode, but man, was this an emotional roller coaster. So it goes back and forth a bit all episode, but we do get some explanations of their backgrounds, which I'm always grateful to hear. Brandan lives out of his RV parked in front of his grandparents' house because his mom lost custody of him while he was growing up due to a drug problem. And Mary, who comes from the Philippines, I don't know how much we know about her family life, but she says that she was abandoned and cheated on several times from previous partners and shows some signs of abandonment issues in that regard as well. This couple seems to me like I'm probably not going to enjoy watching a lot of their problems throughout the season. I mean, I usually don't enjoy watching people have relationship problems, I wish people could figure out how to communicate better and, work things out. And if you want to have better relationships and learn to communicate better, then hit subscribe and look out for future videos. I mean, I know that basically every couple is watching 2 people that have their own attachment problems try to come together and figure things out, but maybe it's just because they look and behave so young.
Maybe kiss.
That it just feels a little bit wrong to watch them figure these things out. I know they're both in their early 20s, but I don't know, it just doesn't... I don't want to watch 2 16-year-olds who are hyper jealous and really hurt try to have a relationship on TV. It doesn't feel appropriate to me. I cannot believe I'm watching a young woman give up on a scholarship for some long-distance online asshole. Mary and Brandan's relationship is legit crazy. Mary has to watch him go to the dentist while she unplugs her router. I know, I get it. I'm glad that we can all say that they're really unhealthy and that none of us like the signs that we're seeing. But I hope that this doesn't devolve into a conversation about how much we hate them and how they're terrible people. I hope we can just separate the people from the behavior on this one. I don't know, am I being too sensitive about this? I'm certainly not saying that anything that I'm saying from them is good. These comments are correct in that it's clearly bad and really not a healthy grounds for anything good to come from it. But they're just so young and immature. They're not just young in age, but their life circumstances. They just appear and behave so young. I don't think I'm giving them a pass, and I hope that we can all learn from this and how to identify abusive or controlling behavior early, but I don't know, it feels wrong going after them too much. They're just so young. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about it. I'm sure I'm being annoying by now. They don't need each other, they just both need therapy. Yeah, I guess that's the better, much more simple way of sharing my sentiment. Okay, moving on. Even though I like Armando and Kenny as a couple, they did not need to be in another season of 90 Day Fiance. An update on how they're doing is okay, but I hope they don't get too much screen time since new couples are more interesting to look at. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Armando and Kenny, they seem fine. They seem like fine people in a good enough relationship. The fact that they're a gay couple and in Mexico does set them apart as a little bit unique from other members of the cast. So I can understand the desire to have a more diverse cast with a more diverse set of circumstances. But if I'm honest, I just don't find them that interesting. And I hope that if Kenny and Armando are watching this, I want them to understand that that's a good thing. If you're on a show like this and you're not acting and faking everything, you want to be the boring couple that people don't want to watch. So good for them, glad they're doing okay. Might be a little boring for me. We got another American going to India who doesn't want to live with his family. We've never seen this before. I don't recall seeing too much of that couple. I don't even know what their names are. But I will say I've been pretty disappointed with watching my fellow Americans go to India in the past couple seasons. That whole wanting the family's approval thing or living in the joint house. Of course, it doesn't represent every single person from the entire subcontinent of India, but that's a pretty big part of their culture. And seeing them discover how different it is on the show, it's getting a little old. Well, I think that's enough of the normal subreddit. Time to see what 90 Day Fiancé Uncensored has to say. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be worse things said about Brandan and Mary. Am I the only one who doesn't hate Statler? I don't get why everyone is hating her so much. Sure, she's a bit different and sex positive, but I haven't seen anything that deserves these comments I'm seeing. I haven't personally seen a lot of hate for Statler, but that's probably because I value my mental health and therefore do not go on these subreddits that often. So I don't know what people are specifically saying about her, but I think I could take a guess. And it's actually pretty similar to this comment here that said, it's easy to dislike her because for the most part, we have all met someone like her in the past, and people can't deal with the pick-me chaos vibes that she brings to the table. She might be sweet, but she's a hectic tryhard, and a lot of people don't resonate with that. I will say quickly in her defense, I think a lot of this could be coercion and editing from the production team. I say that because it feels to me that, especially over the last few seasons, 90 Day Fiancé has become increasingly trope-based in how they're presenting people. It can feel to some like they're disingenuously trying to hit a diversity quota where they can say, oh, we have a gay person and the trans person, and now we have the ADHD person. And I understand that because this wouldn't be the first time that a big corporation is trying to win people over by talking about how diverse they are and that sort of thing. But it could also be well-intentioned too. Taking Cleo, for instance, maybe she's going to go to the airport and says she just doesn't really like it. And the producers may innocently ask, well, how does that interact with your autism? Does it make it harder being autistic going to the airport with a stimulus overload or anything like that? Which would then prompt Cleo to explain how her autism makes the airport worse. And that can raise awareness of the various disabilities or hardships that people may have. But over the course of a whole season, in the cutting room floor, if the only scenes that still make it into the final cut are autism, trans, ADHD, gay, then the end result can be that the entirety of the person and the complexities of the relationship is then reduced to a single character trait. It can take away the individuality of a person and reduces them to, well, you're just the trans person with trans issues. You're just the autistic person with autistic issues. Or for Statler, you're just a goofy, wacky ADHD girl who likes sex issues. But at the same time, she's still giving them stuff to use, so she does still present, at least at times, in this goofy, kind of airheaded, manic pixie dream girl kind of way.
No, that was weird. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. What were we talking about? I don't remember.
And again, I don't want to draw too many conclusions about Statler as an individual human being because, we're just seeing the edited cuts on a TV show. But, and this is my own thing, as someone with ADHD, I do get pretty sensitive and easily irritated by other people who present ADHD in a way that I don't like. Because of my experience with ADHD, I have an amount of guilt and shame around organization or being goofy or people not understanding what I'm saying or that sort of thing. And because I have a lot of guilt and shame around those things, I overcompensate and spend a lot of energy to try to not present that way to other people. So when people with ADHD present themselves with these traits that trigger guilt and shame in me,
I have a little something, a little neurospiciness called ADHD.
I want to reject their ADHD and separate the two of them and say, well they're their thing. That's not me. So it's a little bit of triggering with me, and it's kind of my thing to deal with, right? It's not Statler's fault that I don't like how she presents with ADHD. That's just a reflection of my own guilt and shame around it. But I'd be curious to hear from any of you fellow ADHD or viewers if you felt a similar way, or you kind of get what I'm getting at here. So let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion about it. I don't hate Statler, but she is annoying AF. Her whole personality is around being an ADHD lesbian. Exactly. I totally agree with that, except with the caveat that it's not necessarily Statler as an individual person that has a personality based entirely around being an ADHD lesbian, but it's the Statler character that is subject to the editing and the production team's representation of Statler the individual. Unpopular opinion on Riley. Is it fair to say that he's not an incel or a creep? To me, he's just your cliche middle-aged foreign dude in Southeast Asia. And from the point of view of someone that's black, he also comes across as your stereotypical middle-aged black guy. For anyone just listening to the audio, I'm obviously quoting someone else saying this. If anything, I would say he's lame, but at the same time, for some reason I get the impression that he has good intentions for some of the things he does, but is just an idiot. Though, if he does in fact fetishize Asian women, then he's 100% a creep, no more questions asked. Before I respond, I wanted to give the other perspective. Riley is only getting creepier. I have no hard evidence as to why I feel this way, and it is just an opinion, but the interaction between Riley and Violet's daughters, was off. How excited he was, how he looked at them, how he treats the daughters differently than he treats Violet. Maybe I'm missing something, and I want to be wrong, but alarm bells were blaring in my head in that moment. At the end of the day, he's a much older male stranger in their home with 2 young girls. I think Riley is a bit of a unique case with me. As I mentioned in a previous video of mine, I actually identify a little bit with Riley because it seems like Violet may have a dismissive avoidant attachment style, and I have suffered from people with a dismissive avoidant attachment style. So I could see myself in Riley and empathize with his situation a bit. But enough people seem to have such bad impressions of Riley that I have to believe that he must be triggering some red flags in people that have had experiences that look or seem similar to Riley that are informing them that this guy is no good. And I assume that whatever experiences these people have had that lead them to be triggered by Riley or severely distrust him, I must just be lacking those personal experiences to gain that intuition myself. So although I identify with Riley, mostly because of how Violet behaves, I'm pretty convinced that I am missing some intuition or experience that a lot of other people have had in life. And because of that, I'm very interested in what people have to say about Riley. But so far, it seems like a lot of people have just said it's a feeling or he just seems like a creep. And I'm open to that because, again, I trust in the collective shared experiences of other people that may be cluing them into something that I'm not noticing. But as it stands, I think that we don't have a lot of evidence to suggest that those intuitions or red flags may actually be true for Riley. That's all I got, everyone. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you thought of these couples. Am I being too sensitive about Mary and Brandan, or do you also feel like they're a little too young to be on a TV show like this? Does Statler annoy you too? And if she does, or I guess if she doesn't, do you think that's because of Statler or the way the show is presenting her? And lastly, what do you think of Riley? Is he just a goofy middle-aged dude with some relationship problems? Or is he a creepy, controlling, incel-y freak? I'd love to know what you have to say, but until next time... If you like these smorgasbord style videos, I made another one here you can check out. Or check out my 90 Day Fiance playlist right here.